One toke over the line, sweet Jesus, one toke over the line. Sitting downtown at the railway station, one toke over the line. How often does that happen? Must mean it's going to be a good day. Welcome back, I'm so glad you can make it. Today we're going to talk about electric bikes, electric motorcycles, electric vehicles. As most of you know, I just love motorcycles. I'm not a brand boy, I just love riding. Oh, the smell of fresh cut grass. Oh my. Fresh cut lawn, not, the other. So when Harley came out with their Project Livewire a few years ago, I didn't hate the idea. I thought it was intriguing. I'm not of the school that says, well, if it doesn't burn gasoline, it's not for me. Any more than I'm of the school that says, well, if it ain't a chopper, it's not a motorcycle. And the part that really interests me is if you watch YouTube videos of these people doing their test rides of the electric bikes, when they get on that throttle and the torque is right there, almost without fail, they giggle like schoolgirls. Well, that sounds like fun. So if a motorcycle can be fun and get you from point A to point B, well, I'm all for it. Here is my problem with electric bikes and electric vehicles in general. It takes time to charge a battery. One of the advantages to electric bikes is that when you're not going, your engine's not running, you're not draining your battery. So if you're sitting at a stop sign, you're not actually using up really much energy at all. And that would be great for city driving, where you're doing a lot of stop and go. That'd be terrific, like right now. I wouldn't be burning any battery really to speak of. But for myself and a lot of motorcyclists out there, we don't just sit at stoplights all the time. Here's my dilemma. How do you, on an electric motorcycle, get from, let's say I want to ride to Cleveland today, which is 711 miles away. What's the distance on an electric motorcycle? Just at a rough guess, let's say we get 200 miles. That'll get me almost a third of the way there. But then what? Even if you advance charging technology to where batteries charge really rapidly, am I going to sit someplace for 4 hours while my battery charges? Even an hour. Am I just going to sit there for an hour? Maybe you could have lunch 3 times a day. Now, the only way I can think of that you could do it is to go back to gas stations where you could pull in and swap your battery for a fully charged battery. Now, since a lot of people aren't going to know how to do that because not everybody's mechanical. Grandma may not know how to swap out her battery. We might have to go back to full service gas stations. You pull up in your electric car, Jim Bob comes out, goes and gets your battery, swaps it out. Now your vehicle, and I haven't been on an electric vehicle, so I'm not sure, but I would have to think that they'll tell you how much of a charge you have. So your vehicle will tell you that you've got a full charge and how many miles you can go. There will be a quality control problem in that I don't know that battery that I'm getting is, it could be 40 years old. Probably not, but you get the idea. But that's kind of a minor hurdle to overcome. So I pull in, swap out the battery. You'd have to have universal connectors and that kind of thing, and a universal battery size. That might be a challenge. Otherwise, how does that work practically? I was watching a video, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I'll put it below. And he was talking about them banning petrol and diesel in the UK by 2040 or something like that. It was banning vehicles. I think it was banning vehicles that required gasoline. Now, as an oil company, if I'm going to lose a major segment of my income, I'm going to make that up elsewhere. So gasoline then either becomes very, very expensive, and diesel, or I go out of business. And I know there are people who wouldn't hate seeing the oil companies go out of business, but it has a huge impact. What do you do about shipping? What do you do about trucking? Here's a question. What do you do about farming? You know, all this heavy machinery takes a lot of horsepower or a lot of torque. I get the two confused. But to be able to move earth, to be a heavy mover, that takes a lot of power. And that kind of power coming from an electric cell, you're going to drain it pretty quickly. If all your fuels go up in cost, everything associated with them goes up in cost. Shipping, food, everything. I'm not saying we stop talking about how to make this work. I think it's a great idea. I just think there's some foibles that need to be worked out. And I don't think we're there yet. I don't think the technology's quite there yet. I made the suggestion. You want to go all George Jetson on us? Give me a nuclear motorcycle. A small, microscopic reactor. Now that'd be cool. The big problem to that is, you know, you get a factory recall on your motorcycle, and, well, next thing you know, you're dealing with lesions. People have to be called in hazmat gear, and you know, your neighbors are going bald and that kind of thing. So, you know, that's another hurdle to be overcome. I'm not what you'd call a tree hugger by any means, but if you could be responsible with your environment, I don't think that's a bad thing. Let's do that. There's a really big argument for that. Let's take care of what we have. At the same time, I don't think we can shut down industry. Now, going back to electric vehicles, it's my understanding that to be able to produce these electric vehicles creates more of a carbon footprint and a hazardous environment than a gas vehicle. Obviously, there's more gas vehicles on the road, so by sheer numbers, they may make more of a footprint. But what about when everybody is driving an electric vehicle? The other problem to that is, where does the electricity come from? You have to generate it somewhere. Are we all going to run our cars off of windmills? That's unlikely. We're going to need electric producing plants and maybe more nuclear plants. You know, if you're talking about saving the planet, going all natural, more nuclear plants may not be a desired outcome. You got to create that electricity somehow. As an engineer, it's an interesting proposition. But as an engineer, I see problems with it. I don't want to be a naysayer and saying, oh, that'll never work. I just think there's issues to work out. You know, even if I were to buy an electric car for my wife, we were talking about it the other day, she actually goes on some long trips now and then. So I'm not sure how they deal with those. Is she going to, again, pull over and sit and charge her car? Maybe that's where hybrids come in. I don't know if you could do a hybrid on a motorcycle. That's intriguing as well. You know, the other piece to this is that you've got a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck. The only way you're going to make electric vehicles really take off is to bring the cost down. Now, I know there's a lot of research money and a lot of money that goes into building these things, getting the materials and everything else. But it can't be widespread until most people can afford them. I think when you start passing laws that says, well, you can't make any more gas vehicles, what you're saying is, for the majority of a population, they're going to have to buy used vehicles, and they're going to pay through the nose for gas. They may not be able to afford that. So are you really passing a law that says that this segment, this unknown segment of people, aren't going to drive anymore? What does that do to your economy? I think there's some questions that have to be answered before we can really roll it out. And since I'm an average guy with average sensibilities, I think I'm asking reasonable questions. I don't have an agenda one way or the other. And maybe in answering some of these questions, we'll take away some of the arguments as to why this isn't going to work. Don't hit me, dude. Or chickie, whatever you are. I don't care if you're a ferret, don't hit me. Every single time I hit the brakes, even reasonably quickly, I have to wonder if the person behind me is texting. And if they are texting, I hope they're driving an expensive vehicle. Because when I get out of the hospital, I'm going to need something to drive around until they fix my motorcycle. So I'm not a hater. I don't think things like, oh, they're just catering to the yuppies or any of that. I think it's intriguing. The noise concerns me a little bit. I am one of those people that thinks that having a loud sound to my bike adds some level of protection, adds some level of awareness to the drivers around me. And to be on a motorcycle that has little to no noise, that frightens me a little bit, but I will learn to deal with the lack of noise. I'll ride on the back and go, it'll be glorious. Sorry, Harley rumble, a little deeper. So what do you think? Electric motorcycles? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks.